Great. This is Mrs. Pritchard. I'm going to do another lesson standing up because I like that. And you guys did such a great job with metric, but we're actually going to be moving into customary units now. So I know I did a video on what we do to measure length in the metric system, right? So that was like meter, kilometer, millimeter, that kind of stuff. But we also have customary units to measure the length of objects. So I'm going to give you a minute to think, what other units do you know we can measure for length? Yes, okay, I'm starting to hear some of those. So I'm going to give you some objects so we can start to think. So I heard someone say inches. So that's another way we can measure length. So when you think of inches, how big they are, put your thumb up. And inches are like the width of your thumb. So if I moved my thumb away, that's about how big inches are, just to kind of give you an idea. Okay, so we have inches. What else? Ooh, feet. Excellent. So you can think of the width of your foot or have a nice easy book here. So if you have a book, you can think of kind of the length of a book. That's about a foot. Okay, so that's about how long a foot is. So think again, we had our inches, now our feet. And then what about if you were thinking, what's another one for like bigger? Yeah, yards. So if you're thinking of yards, think of like in the back here. If you look, I have my window. So a window would be yards. Think of your desk at school. I know you miss it so much. So if you were going to measure that, that would be yards. And what would be kind of the biggest one that we could do? Yeah, that would be miles, right? So a lot of times when we're measuring long distances, we might do it in miles. Okay, good job. Okay, so one thing I'm going to show you is we're going to kind of have a chart, but it's going to be different because we're no longer in the metric. So we're not going to have that staircase anymore, okay? But we're still going to be thinking about the same idea of coding, okay? But we're not going to be doing powers of 10. So you're going to be using, I'll have a copy of this, okay? So this is going to kind of be the chart that we're using, okay? So I want you guys to kind of look here. So again, so let's make sure we understand that before I put that up. So if we're going kind of smallest to largest, right? We have inches being the smallest, feet, think of your foot. Then we have yards, like a desk, and then miles. So there's not as many. There's kind of 4 we're going to focus on, but we're still going to be thinking, are we going smaller to larger or larger to smaller when we do our coding? Okay. So this is going to be kind of what you're going to be using. So it's kind of easy to see. So if I look at the first one, we have 12 inches. That gives us 1 foot. So that's how many of those small inches it takes. And then it takes 3 feet to equal 1 yard. And then I could even say, well, how many inches does it take to make 1 yard? Because they're so small, that would be 36 inches equals 1 yard. And then I even go a little bit further and I tell you how many yards are in a mile. You guys, 1,760 yards. So that's like width of your desk to equal 1 mile. And look at this. I even did how many feet it equals in 1 mile, which would be 5,280. You could even figure out how many inches as well. But for right now, these are kind of the ones that we're going to be using. Okay, and you will have a copy of this because you're going to need it because these numbers are going to be really important. Okay, so let's kind of practice. Okay, we're going to be doing the same kind of coding idea as we did with the metric. So I'm going to kind of write a quick one here. Okay, so all right, so it looks very similar. So I'm starting with 15 yards, and I want to know how many feet. So our first step, you guys, is exactly the same. We're going to code. Now, we don't have a staircase, but we can think about the units. So if I'm going from yards, which I told you was like your desk, and I'm going to feet, which is like the size of your foot or that book, what direction am I going? What are bigger? Yeah, yards are bigger. So I'm coding the same way that I did with the metric. I'm still going larger to a smaller unit. So think about what we did on the staircase. It's the same kind of thing. When we were going down the staircase to a smaller unit, what operation did we do? We multiplied, right? When we were going down, when we were going a larger to a smaller, because it's going to take more of them. So here's my coding. Exactly what we did. Okay, so you're just thinking, what direction are you going? Same idea. Larger to smaller, I'm multiplying. If I'm going smaller to larger, I'd be dividing. Okay, now what was our next step we normally did? We kind of wrote an expression. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Now, I'm going to kind of go on this side. So I'm going to do 15 because that's what I'm starting with. I know that I'm going to be multiplying. Now, we're not doing powers of 10 here. So I'm not going to put 10 to the second or that. I have to just know, I have to look here and I have to think, okay, how many feet are in 1 yard? How many feet are in 1 yard? So I'm not going to know that off the top of my head. So I would put my chart up. So then I'm going to look at 3 feet, it says, is equal to 1 yard. So it takes 3 feet just to equal 1 yard. So I'm going to go back here. So instead of putting, like we normally did, 10 to the something, like second power, I'm going to put 3. That's kind of my magic number because it takes 3 feet in 1 yard. So this number is going to vary. And now I just have to do my multiplying. So 15 times 3. Fifth grade, what is that? 45. So my answer would be 45. So on a lot of these now, we don't have to worry so much about shifting the decimal because we're not doing metric anymore. We're going to have to really be careful of what this number is and then do our math correctly. Okay, so we're going to do another one. We're still coding. We're still writing an expression and we're still solving. So it's not that different. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, so now this happens a lot on your sample and your homework. So I'm going to see if you guys have an idea of what to do. So now I don't have this. I have blank feet is equal to 48 inches. Now a lot of kids are like, oh, I don't know that starting number. What do I do? So what do you guys think you can do? I remember Edie saying this in our class. Is it okay to flip this problem, 5th grade? Am I changing the value at all? No. So if you don't like how this looks, let's just flip it. So that means let's put the 48 inches first equals blank feet. Okay? So if you don't like how that looks, just rewrite it, flip it. Okay, now we're just going to do our coding again. So if we're starting at inches, okay, those width of your thumbs, and I'm going to feet, what direction am I going? Yes, inches are smaller than feet, so I'm going smaller to larger. Okay, and remember that was like, oh, we're going up. When you're going up, it's harder, so what operation? Yes, on this one I'd be dividing because it's not going to take as many. Okay, now we write our expression. 48 divided by, now here's where we need our chart. We need to figure out how many inches, sorry, because I forgot we flipped it. How many inches are in a foot? So let's go to our chart and see if you guys can figure it out. How many inches, how many inches are in 1 foot? If I go to the very top one, I see that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Okay. So here's that magic number, 12. I told you the number that's going to change sometimes. So if I were going to do 48 divided by 12, if I can't do that in my head, I'm hoping we know our 12s, we can count by 12s. What would I get? 12, 24, 36, 48. So that would be 4. So 48 inches is equal to 4 feet. Okay, so remember, code and still think, are you multiplying or dividing? Writing an expression, okay, but this is kind of the special one this time. You're going to have a specific number off your chart you're going to have to look at, and then you're going to do the math. Okay, let's try one more. Okay, you guys are rocking this. Okay, I'm going to be really mean and put in a fraction. I know. You're like, Mrs. Pritchard. But I know you guys can do this. Okay, so 2.5 yards is how many inches? First step, Tyson, what are we doing? Yes, we're coding. That's the only thing we're doing. So again, I'm going from yards to inches. So what direction am I going? Think of how big yards are. Yeah, yards are bigger than inches. So I'm going from a larger to a smaller unit. Okay, so because these are smaller, it's like I'm going, when I was going down the staircase, so I'd be what? Multiplying. Whenever I go from a larger to a smaller, I'd be multiplying. Okay, second step. Yeah, Elliot, I'm going to write an expression. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2.5 times, now, again, I need to figure out how many inches are in 1 yard. So if I go back here, gosh, I can never. So how many inches are in a yard? No. Ooh, so if I look at this one, I see 36 inches in 1 yard. 36 inches in 1 yard. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to have to times that by 36. Oh my gosh, it looks so hard. It's not, right? So what am I going to do if I have an improper or I have a mixed number? Yes, Cameron, thank you. I'm going to turn it into an improper. So I'm going to do my times plus. So 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So I'm turning this into 5 halves, right? Because my denominator does not change. Okay, what can I do to 36 to make it a fraction? Yeah, I can put any whole number over 1. Thank you. I can cross simplify in this direction. They're both even numbers. So what can go into them? 2. So 2 can go into 2 once. So that becomes a 1. I love that when my denominators are 1. And then can someone tell me how many times can 2 go into 36? This is a little hard. Yeah, 18. Good job. So now when I'm looking, my denominators are 1. So I know I'm going to have a whole number. All I have to do is 5 times 18. Micah, what would that be? 5 times 18. Yeah, that's going to be 90. So when I go up here, if I had 2.5 yards, because remember those are bigger, that would be equal to 90 inches. So I coded, I wrote my expression, and yeah, it's a little bit harder to solve these ones maybe than just shifting the decimal, but you just need to look at your chart to see what this magic number is. Okay, so today I'm just going to give you a couple sample problems to try with the customary length. Okay, and I want to see how you do. If you have questions, please comment below. And don't forget, you guys, we're having office hours, so that's a great time to pop in and say, hey, I'm just getting a little confused on this part. Could you help? Okay, so I want you guys to try those on a whiteboard, a separate sheet of paper. Make sure you're using your conversion chart so you know how many inches, yards, feet, and that. Okay, all right, you got this. Let's rock it.